see it again.
God, a minute is long when you're waiting. Okay, there it is. Good evening and welcome to the council meeting of the 27th of May, 2019. We are using Facebook Live streaming on Facebook Live. There is no live interaction, but you may leave comments. The most up-to-date meeting package is on the Town of Kentville website. And members of council will not be answering Facebook posts this evening or furthermore. This meeting is called to order. Have all of the councillors received and reviewed their meeting packages? Does any member of council have information pertaining to a matter before this council which has not been publicly circulated? I will remind members of council that we are in decision-making mode and we should be mindful of our decision-making wheel. We have committed to making balanced and respectful decisions and adhering to our code of conduct. We will be voting by electronic ballot on all matters except administrative. Please do not vote prior to the display of members. When the vote is input, the name of the member will change shading, indicating that the member has voted. You may change your vote at any time throughout the voting period. Select green for yes, red for no. You may also select yellow to abstain, but your vote will be counted as a negative. The chair will call the voting closed, and the secretary will close the voting, displaying the results. The chair will then report the outcome of the vote. Are there any conflict of interest issues we should be aware of before this meeting commences? CEO Phillips, could you please take the roll call?
Thank you, Your Worship. We have a full attendance this evening of council. In addition, you have Solicitor Matart to my left and Recording Secretary Jennifer West to your right. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Approval of the agenda. You have before you the proposed agenda. Are there any additions or deletions? I have one addition to item 4, unfinished business. So item 4B should read Kentville Historical Society Green Space Report. Additionally, under item 5, recommendations and reports, it should read Councillor Kathy Maxwell. We were trying to give Councillor Pulsifer extra duties. If I could have a motion to accept the agenda. Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. All right, you have before you 3 sets of minutes. We have the special council meeting on April the 11th. It has been distributed. Are there any errors or omissions of those minutes? If no, the minutes are approved as distributed. If yes, the recording secretary will annotate the minutes in red. Okay, no, we're moving on. Council meeting April 29th. Again, the minutes have been distributed. Are there any errors or omissions? If no, they will be approved as distributed. If yes, they will be amended. No. Moving on to our 3rd set of minutes for the special council meeting on May the 6th. The council meeting have been distributed. Are there any errors or omissions to those minutes? If no, the errors are approved as distributed. If yes, the secretary will annotate. It's a no. Moving on. All right, we're moving on to our business arising from the minutes, or our unfinished business, our recommendation for smoking bylaw. And CEO, if you could step us.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is, as advertised, a second reading. So just remind members of council here of the recommendation, perhaps, if that's appropriate. So the recommendation at the time was that the current bylaw, Chapter 84, Smoke-Free Public Places, be rescinded and replaced with the revised bylaw, Chapter 99, Smoke-Free Public Places. This revision will include expanded definitions covering cannabis, public places, and smoking to include vaping or other methods of inhaling substances.
Excellent, thank you. And we had no, did we have any comments on this prior to our second reading? Nothing?
I'm aware of.
All right.
Worship. I'm looking for Jennifer there if we've received anything. But
Okay,
no.
so we had no input on this, so we have a recommendation that council gives second reading to Chapter 99 Smoke-Free Public Places Bylaw with expanded definitions covering cannabis, public places, smoking and vaping or other methods of inhalation. And further, that council rescind Chapter 84, smoke-free public places, upon adoption of Chapter 99. Somebody could move that?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that council give second reading to Chapter 99, Smoke-Free Public Places Bylaw with expanded definitions, covering cannabis, public places, smoking and vaping, or other methods of inhalation. And further, that council rescind Chapter 84, Smoke-Free Public Places, upon adoption of Chapter 99. Is there any discussion? Councillor Ballin, please.
Thank you, Worship. What are the plans by staff to promote this new additions to the bylaw? Is there any plans for signage, or do we budget for that, or just to create some awareness?
Yep.
Thank you.
Primarily social media, I would say. We've not put a whole lot of thought into signage out there. I think, nor have we had a lot of issues, I don't believe, with the police around the consumption of cannabis in public areas. But so we'll do a mixed approach between the communications team and the police service to educate if we can. We may be able to modify the signs. I'm not sure. I'm just trying to recall what chapter is noted on the sign and whether legally, this is a smoke-free place sign that we've been using can be transferred to this. I'm assuming it might be able to with the switch of a chapter number on the sign, but we'll look into that. We haven't really probably put a whole lot of thought into the signage piece to date.
Just as a follow-up, we all know where the smoking, we'll call it, hot spots are in town. So they may be great spots for signage for that, just to create awareness. In my opinion, it's not fair to charge a young person for vaping if they're not aware of the bylaws. So again, I'll leave that up to staff to look at where those areas are and maybe put some signage there. And I think our police force would be gentle, certainly initially, to create that awareness, certainly. So, yep, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
I'm just wondering if it's also possible to maybe send a notice to NECEC and maybe surrounding high schools and let those students know that in the town of Kentville, this is the change. So they can put it on their morning announcements.
Okay.
Thank you.
Newsletters and various things that we have. Yeah.
Exactly. All right, is there any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve, to give second reading to the Chapter 99 Smoke-Free Public Places Bylaw. Voting is now open. Oh, yeah. All right, you have a few seconds to change your mind or not. Voting is now closed.
We were just, if I could, Your Worship.
Certainly, please.
Procedurally, we'll have the mayor give you a 3-second warning, and then Jennifer will close it.
So the motion is carried unanimously. So we have second reading on this, which means that we will be updating our website tomorrow for that bylaw. All right, our next, Councillor Andrew, did you have?
So I just wanted to clarify, so that we won't know how others voted during that 3-second gap,
No,
right?
no,
I
no,
just wanted to
that's correct,
confirm
yeah.
that. Okay.
It'll stay with just the shaded, and that'll give you an opportunity to do that sober second.
Thank you.
You know, did I press yes, or did I press no, and did I mean no when I pressed yes, or? Because sometimes we ask questions that are not intuitively a yes question, and so
happened.
just, yep, it
Okay,
has
thank you.
happened. All right, thank you. So not so fast on the trigger. Our next presentation of the report on the Kentville Historical Society Green Space Project. So the Kentville Historical Society made a presentation to council on the 29th of April council meeting. They requested the parking lot and lot entrance situated between the building and the current green area be let to the society to create a green space. The motion was to support the Kentville Historical Society project in principle, and that town staff and members of society collaborate to provide a report to council within 30 days. Here we are 30 days later. CAO Phillips, if you could give us that report, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll head right to the discussion piece of the report, Council. However, prior to that, myself and Director Bedingfield met with members of the Kentville Historical Society on Friday, May 24th, around noon, to discuss this recommendation and report and the various elements that the mayor had noted. So within this discussion, I highlight a number of areas that I think it was easy for us to kind of segregate. The first piece that we discussed internally within operations here and with the group was around property and boundaries. So I'll just read the report. The survey work. It is noted that the proposed green space does not conflict with any existing street right-of-way boundary on the south side of the proposed space or with Station Lane. The proposed park will be located entirely on Town of Kentville lands, which are known as 66 Cornwallis Street. It is actually Station Lane, but that's the civic address, and the PID number for the property is noted there. If supported by council and the space is developed by the group, it is anticipated the space will be owned by the Town of Kentville, and there will be no transfer of lands between the parties. With respect to infrastructure, there's a few elements here. With respect to water, there are no conflicts with underground water related infrastructure associated with the proposal. Sanitary sewer, there are no conflicts with underground sanitary sewer related infrastructure. With respect to stormwater, there is an existing conflict with stormwater related infrastructure. An existing storm drain / catch basin is located within the proposed section of land earmarked for the green spaces. In addition, there is an underground infrastructure beneath the surface, approximately 6 feet in depth, running diagonally and north and south through the same section. I note here the corrective action for this as it relates to the green space. The catch basin will have to be relocated or an additional catch basin installed to the north of the proposed green space. The reconnection of the associated piping and fittings to existing underground systems will also be required. Caution is issued for the underground infrastructure in the noted area. Should the stormwater system require repairs or replacement, the green space would be significantly impacted or damaged, should that have to be carried out. Additionally, renovations, upgrades related to the green space should not be excavated below the existing asphalt subsurface. So just quickly before I leave that, this is concrete piping, stormwater. There's no pressure on it, so the probability of something happening is low when you compare it to water or sanitary sewer. But it is worth noting that from time to time there needs to be repairs if needed. Concrete curb is another element within the infrastructure realm. There is no curb currently installed obstructing the development of the green space. It is noted that the western section of the curb and northeastern section may be removed to provide a preferred transition between the space and neighboring property. If this work is carried out, it would be deemed as a convenient factor and not necessarily something crucial. Curbing will need to be added to the north side of the space to accommodate the surface water from the adjacent parking lot, or what we would call the north end parking lot, between ourselves and the White's Family Funeral Home. Additionally, curb and sidewalk will have to be installed on the south side of the space. At this time, the curb to the south and sidewalk should be delayed while the town considers the implementation of the active transportation plan as it relates to Station Lane. Temporary curbing or landscaping retention will have to be implemented in the interim. So we've discussed that with the group as well. The landscaping component. After reviewing the proposed plan and components, staff have not identified any concerns associated with the present design. The plan includes components that promote low maintenance elements such as ground cover and plantings of perennials and trees. Not only does the plan look very attractive and complementary to the surrounding landscaping, but it will require very little maintenance. It has not been determined at this time who will be responsible for ongoing maintenance of the space once it's been developed. And I think there's a, if you want to, you can, or if you want to, we can. That kind of thing seems to be happening. So again, with the proposed plan, low maintenance seems like something either party could deal with. Parking impacts. It is noted that 3 spaces will be impacted with the development of this space. These 3 spaces are currently assigned to the building versus parking available to the general public under the 2-hour all-day parking provided in the parking lot. Parking lot traffic flow. On May 16th and 22nd, an employee of the Public Works Department carried out traffic counts in the pertinent areas, entrances and exits to and from the parking lot, as well as traffic flow counts on Station Lane. The 3 entrances noted, we called number 1, the first exit entrance off of Cornwallis, and that's the south entrance immediately adjacent to Station Lane. The second entrance to the parking lot is more or less by the White's Family Funeral Home front door. And then the third entrance is off of Station Lane, going in and from the parking lot. Some of the numbers that were collected there, you can see that the entrance is off the first entrance in and out, vehicles in and out of the parking lot on that particular day, 12 and 4. The entrance is off the second parking lot, 15 and 23. And then the entrance off Station Lane 32 and 19. And just for information, that the Station Lane traffic count was also during that day 275 vehicles going eastbound and 91 going westbound. Similar findings on the 22nd, where you have entrance 1 being the low, entrance 2 the medium, and entrance 3 being the high. And then you'll see the traffic counts increase on that particular day. So it's only as good as the time that it's taken, and it is just a snapshot of what was happening there, but it does give us an indication. Based on the data sampling, the highest volume of access to and from the parking lot is through entrance 3 of Station Lane. 57% of all vehicles entering the parking lot were through entrance 3. 41% of all vehicles exiting the parking lot do so through entrance 3. Recognizing the higher percentage of traffic volume through entrance number 3, it is not anticipated that the parking lot cannot be adequately serviced through the 2 entrances off Cornwallis. And improved signage highlighting those 2 entrances off Cornwallis would be advisable if council moves in this direction. So just so I'm clear on that, if that entrance 3 were eliminated through the provision of the park, we feel that the parking lot could be adequately serviced through those 2. A lot of all-day parking there, so, you know, the 2 hours obviously is where folks are coming and going the majority of the time. The next element is the active transportation network. The town has identified the need to improve the flow of pedestrian and bicycle traffic through the downtown corridor, as there is a break in trail connectivity from West Main Street through to Leverett Avenue. Although yet to be released, the AT study conducted in 2018-19 favors the connectivity of the trail network via Station Lane. It further suggests the development of an active activity hub in the location of the historical building with the inclusion of bicycle lockers, watering stations, and other elements promoting this area as a community space. The development of the green space and restriction of traffic flow perpendicular to the vehicle flow on Station Lane could be complementary should council support the green space as well as the proposed AT plan. So we kind of look at everything. It certainly leads where it can lead together into one area of what we might call a community space or a hub. Budget implications. I'm sure Deb will get that word right later. All costs associated with the project, including planning, design, engineering, and the development of the space, will be the responsibility of the Kentville Historical Society. Ongoing maintenance costs will be minimized through the design, but have yet to be assigned under the budget section. With respect to attachments, I've included the report provided to you on April 29th. So in conclusion, should council decide to support the request and grant permission to the group to develop the green space, there are no known concerns that would restrict the development of the space as proposed. Further, the project, should the project be supported, the town of Kentville anticipates 0 expenses unless requested otherwise by the group. Finally, all designs and physical changes to the space must be approved by the operations of the town of Kentville through the Public Works Department and be compliant with road and stormwater standards and all policies and bylaws of the town of Kentville.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So questions for the CAO on this report? Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick thing about the storm drain, Mark. Is it possible the storm drain can remain there? Because I know at one of the properties I look after, there was an issue and it was a pipe running underground that burst, and they actually put a drain right in the lawn.
Yeah. So, yes, to answer your question, that can stay there. We talked about probably capping it, just putting some kind of cover over it. But there needs to be the installation of an additional catch basin to catch that water from the parking lot. So the slope of the parking lot now, with the addition of a curb on the north side, it should blend in there nicely. Yeah.
Councillor Bolland.
Thank you, Worship. A good extensive report, a lot of work there. Two questions, well, one's a statement, I guess. So there is a question out there if we will have any expenses, so there may be ongoing dialogue on that. And the second one is I wouldn't put a lot of emphasis on the traffic study because the County King is obviously moving out of Kentville next week. Thus, there'd be less traffic in and out of that parking lot, so that'd be less of a burden. So is that correct?
Well, just aside from the fact that Justice will be replacing it. So in
Sure,
an interim
but-
period of time, there may be a reduced flow of people and vehicles, but I fully anticipate as they scale up, they'll be equal to or greater than.
Is that right? Oh, okay.
Just the activity around the building. Again, we know years of watching that parking lot associated with that building in the back, it's underutilized. So I
Yeah.
don't expect life will look or feel much different once that transition happens there. There's only so many spaces there, and when it's full, they'll go down back.
Yeah, okay. Good point. Yep, thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. CO Phillips, there was a mention in the report there about not going too far down under the asphalt that's there now. So does that mean just the surface of the, I'm just trying to understand that. The
Yep.
surface would just be,
So I think we would anticipate that the asphalt would be removed.
okay,
So that it's not competing with the organic material that would be installed.
Yep.
I mean, whether it's heat or water retention or whatever.
okay,
But just with respect to the storm drain, we would, and I don't think that they need that additional depth because they plan on not only adding soil, but some of the plantings, I believe they plan on even have a bit of a berm
okay,
to accommodate it. So,
okay.
you know, go down 5 or 6 inches, but no more.
Okay,
Would be the
great.
recommendation.
Thank you.
Anything further? I have a couple questions. So would we require a bond for the construction or for the work, and would it be done under a contract?
I guess we haven't thought about that, Your Worship.
Okay.
I think in spirit, it feels like, although the work's not being carried out by the town, it would be done to our standard and our expectations. Now, you know, I guess we would think about what security in the event that folks won the lottery and sailed off somewheres halfway through the project, something like that. We don't like to say hit by lightning now.
No,
So.
especially all the rain we've had.
Right. But again, I think I would say, as I see this overall vision, and I know council has the advantage of seeing the AT plan, that as we start to visualize this space starting to come together, that should council approve the AT plan and those pieces, that they start to complement each other, and there's less risk of this thing being out there all by itself and not working with some other piece. But to add to your comfort and mine as well, we can certainly draft something, I think, between the group as plans start to become more formalized. There would be an approval process. You know, if you were to approve it tonight, it's not, okay, see us when the park's done. It's you approve it, and then operations will kind of take over, making sure, with no due respect, that they know what they're doing and that it's being done under the supervision of an engineer or our standards, that kind of thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. So what is the wish of council? Councillor Maxwell.
Yes, can I make a motion here?
All right,
So I'd like to make a motion to give the Historical Society the go-ahead to develop a green space in the north parking lot, following the recommendations and guidelines established in the report.
okay, I'm back at Kentville Historical Society.
Yeah.
Keep going. I know you've got it
Oh,
written down.
Give
so-
the Historical Society the go-ahead
Okay,
to develop a green space in the north parking lot following the recommendations and guidelines in the report.
You get that? Nice. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a seconder? Second. Thank you. All right, we have a motion that has been moved and seconded that council give the Kentville Historical Society the go-ahead to develop a green space in the north parking lot following the recommendations and guidelines in the report. Is there any further discussion? Voting is now open. Councillor Gerard, I see you got your finger on the button already. Okay. One steamboat, two steamboats, three steamboats, boom. Voting is now closed. And motion is carried. Thank you. You can do happy dance if you want, Carol.
I can. I just sort of did.
That was it.
That was your happy dance?
Tomorrow when the sun actually shines, I think we should.
Okay, okay. All right. Okay, we're moving on to our recommendations and reports. The recommendations are arising from the CAC meeting and will be presented and moved by Councillor Maxwell. Your microphone is now on.
Okay. I just need the window width so I can see.
Okay.
Okay, Council Advisory Committee recommendation to Council concerning the 2019-2020 or 2020 interest rates for overdue accounts. At the May 13th, 2019 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Director Kroll presented her report on interest rates for 2019 to 2020. Failure to collect taxes can impact revenue and financial stability and ensures that outstanding are paid when due. The recommended interest rate is within industry standard range. Council Advisory Committee recommended that the interest rate on outstanding accounts for the town of Kentville remain at 2% per month or part thereof, 26.8% per annum for the year April 1st, 2019 to March 31st, 2020. I so move.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that council approve the interest rate on outstanding accounts for the town of Kentville remain at 2% per month or part thereof, 26.8% per annum for the year April 1st, 2019 to March 31st, 2020. Is there any discussion? Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve the interest rate on outstanding accounts for the town of Kentville remain at 2% per month or part thereof, 26.8% per annum for the year April 1st, 2019 to March 31st, 2020. Voting is now open. And voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you.
Okay. Next one, Council Advisory Committee recommendation to Council concerning the Flood Preparedness and Response Plan. At the May 13th, 2019 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Dan Stovall, coordinator of the Kings Regional Emergency Management Organization, REMO, gave a presentation about the draft plan in the event of a major flood. Flooding and road closures can have a significant impact. However, with coordinated risk assessment and strategic planning, response can be more efficient and reduce injuries and property damage. He requested that council review and approve this plan, which is being reviewed by all municipal partners of the King's REMO. Council Advisory Committee recommended that council approve the attached flood preparedness and response plan from the Kings Regional Emergency Management Organization. I so move.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that council approve the flood preparedness and response plan from Kings Regional Emergency Management Organization. Is there any discussion? Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve the flood preparedness and response plan from the Kings Regional Emergency Management Organization. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. Motion is carried. Thank you. And all of these motions have been carried unanimously for those of you in Facebook if you can't see the screen.
Okay, Council Advisory Committee recommendation to council concerning the Kentville Wildcats Baseball Club. At the May 13th, 2019 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Sandy and Margaret Van Blarkum gave a presentation regarding the status and sustainability of the club. The club is requesting a one-time grant or in-kind support from council to support the team's operations this year. Council Advisory Committee recommended that council approve the funding request from the Kentville Senior Wildcats Baseball Club for a grant of $2,875. I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that council approve the funding request from the Kentville Senior Wildcats Senior Baseball Club for a grant of $2,875. Is there any discussion? Councillor Andrew, please.
Were we waiting for some information from them before?
Just paged it.
We got it?
Oh, we did?
Yes,
Okay, sorry.
it's attached at this,
If you scroll down, you'll see.
Oh my God.
yes.
Oh, goodness.
They're different form of financials.
So if you look at the first, I think the first page probably ties it in a neat bow. Councillor Gerard.
Just a quick question. I assume, Mark, the information came through you, and I'm just wondering if they had mentioned anything about monies from fundraising. It doesn't appear that they've done any fundraising on their own.
I can't comment on that.
I thought maybe they might have added it while they said it.
Yeah, I do know and note here, I would have called it a private contribution, but Murray's football pool keeps the team alive.
Yeah.
For the most part, at the end of each year. So as Sandy, I think, noted at the last meeting, that well is getting drier, and the ability to generate funding there is limited, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion?
Yeah.
Are you ready for the question?
I
is
had
on-
a response there.
Oh.
Did my light not shine?
Well, you can, but see, I don't shut your light off, so
Oh.
you have to wave to me.
Okay.
Councillor Maxwell, please, sorry.
Yeah, I think if you scroll down and you look at the information, they gave us what would be called under revenue, several options and for fundraising. One was their 50/50, which is a fundraiser. They sell season tickets. They've had equipment sales. I assume that cattails would also be a fundraiser. They collect fees from the players. They sell T-shirts. Then they have the football pool, and they also have donations. So I do believe that they do have some fundraising involved there. It's under gate receipts. And I think we need to keep in mind that, you know, the accounting this is a baseball team. And it's not an organization that's submitting major income tax information and things like that. This is a recreational, competitive baseball team. So I think we need to keep that in mind. It's not a business.
Is there any further discussion?
Question?
The question is on adoption of the motion to approve funding request from the Kentville Senior Wildcats Senior Baseball Club for a grant of $2,875.
If I may, Mayor.
Oh, certainly, go
Sorry.
ahead.
I just, that was, the first time I had seen the budget, and I just, if maybe, so I don't know how to, I don't want to slow the process down, because I am I'm supportive of this in principle. I just want to know from other members of council who did notice that there, and look at it, that everyone feels good
I
about it? or-
I read it before council.
Okay, I did not,
It
so I
wasn't
just,
until 4:30-ish.
okay.
Yeah, it didn't come out until 4:30. So,
Okay,
yeah,
all
we
right.
we were kind of delayed on that information.
I mean, there's nothing shocking or startling in it, yeah. All right.
All right. So voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you unanimously.
All right. Need that window width. Okay, Council Advisory Committee recommendation to Kentville concerning recreation complex in Kentville. At the May 13th, 2019 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Jeff Zettler, resident of the town and business owner, gave a presentation regarding the idea of building a recreation complex in the town. The 8-person committee believes that many people would enjoy a wellness complex that provides different recreation spaces and could also host a variety of significant recreational events. Council Advisory Committee recommended that council support in principle a request from a group of Kentville citizens for a community recreation complex and provide town recreation staff for support. I so move.
Thank you.
So moved.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
second.
It has been moved and seconded that council approve in principle a request from a group of Kentville citizens for a community recreation complex and provide town recreation staff for support. Discussion. Councillor Maxwell, your light is still
Oh,
on, so if you need to talk, give me a
no,
wave.
I'm good. Yeah,
All
I'll
right.
wave.
So I guess there's only one thing that I want to say. There was an article about this in this morning's Chronicle Herald, and it did state that the Kentville Centennial Arena needed to be replaced. The Kentville Centennial Arena does not need to be replaced. It is in very serviceable and in better condition than most arenas of its age. So that was not a statement that quite reflected the capacity of our rink. And I just wanted to make that as my public statement for today. It was
Ian.
just the local.
Ian Fairclough.
Yeah,
Ian Fairclough.
yeah. So from our local counter, yeah. All right, so are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve in principle a request from a group of Kentville citizens for a community recreation complex and to provide town recreation staff for support. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know how much of this you want me to read, but I can read the whole thing if you want.
Is this the arena?
Yeah,
Maybe I could tackle that one.
Okay,
If you
sure.
wanted to. It's, I guess it didn't really come from CAC, did it?
no,
No.
but
Right.
it was
Yep,
during
it's in the
budget deliberations.
Okay, so the rationale for replacing the Zamboni/ice resurfacer has been discussed, so I won't revisit that in the origin or the background. Council had pre-approved the purchase of the ice resurfacer, although Director Kroll is here tonight to request the approval of the capital budget. We did move forward on that with your permission. There's really two suppliers of ice resurfacers, one being Saunders Equipment and the second one Monarch Enterprises. So Saunders Equipment provides what we call Zamboni, and Monarch provides an ice resurfacer called an Olympia. So staff recommends, and the noted prices are there, they're both the difference of $2,000. Staff recommends a selection of Saunders equipment for the tender for the following reasons. The availability, it should be noted that Monarch was a 12-month delivery time, and Saunders with the Zamboni is a 6-month delivery time. Working relationship is certainly positive with both, but we have a long-standing relationship with Saunders, not only for the Zamboni, but for some of the equipment at Public Works as well. Service delivery is a component where Saunders has a mobile tech, and those people come and go for different reasons, whether it's sidewalk machines or Zambonis. We do pay, obviously, but they have a tech where Monarch is not as well known for the mobility of their technicians, where a piece of machinery has to be delivered or worked on by even a third party. We've had, in the past, we had an Olympia when I first arrived, and we've had other propane companies work on it where primarily Saunders would be here to service the unit. And familiarity of operations and maintenance. Olympia is certainly a strong ice resurfacer, but we commonly reference Zamboni because of its reputation. The other thing I know that there's a shorter wheelbase with Zamboni, which allows the operator to get in the corners a little bit tighter in maneuverability. So the recommendation, and further information there, you'll see the proceeds from sales anticipated to be $10,000 with a net cost of $94,200. So staff are recommending to council the approval of the purchase of the ice resurfacer from Saunders Equipment for the purchase price of $104,200, supported by the 2020 capital budget. For
So
your
moved.
consideration.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that council approve the purchase of the ice resurfacer from Saunders Equipment for $104,200. Discussion, Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. Mark, I'm just wondering, do these machines come with any type of warranty?
Good question, Councillor. Yeah, I'm a little bit unfamiliar now. It's been a few years, but powertrain I would expect, but blades and bumpers and brushes I would expect no.
Wearable
But
parts.
yeah. So I can't answer your question directly, but I would expect powertrain. Yeah,
The last one lasted 9 years.
seems about right. Yeah.
Is there any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve purchase of the ice resurfacer from Saunders Equipment at $104,200. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to our councillor reports, and the reports will be added to the public record under a single motion at the end of the presentations. And we're starting with Councillor Andrew, please.
All right. I won't report anything on King's Transit because I believe we have an upcoming presentation at our next CIC meeting from our general manager. But we had 2 meetings. There was a lot to work through in terms of budget and regional NSFM in Truro. It was surprisingly good. It was a short, conference, but very, very informative, and it was a bit smaller than our fall conference, but a great time for information and education. Oh, wait a minute. So what was the other thing I went to before?
Your regional.
Oh, that was the regional meeting. Yeah, that was our local adjacent municipalities. And budget meetings. We had a series of budget meetings, 3 of them for our town, and that was good and interesting. And I think we all, certainly I, had an understanding of what we were doing this year above previous years, which was good and refreshing. At King's Transit, I think we'll cover that next time. National Day of Mourning. It's a neat event hosted by our Annapolis Valley Labor Council. Met with the municipal affairs representative. We have a new representative for our region, Jason Hahn.
Yeah.
And really great young man, and we had just a good chat and connected. And the Kentville Historical Society official opening was exciting, standing room only, So it was a great success, and thank you to Councillor Paulson, who also, she stepped aside for some of the decision-making, was instrumental, I think, in pushing this forward, and I think it's something for us all to celebrate. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Last council meeting attended was April 29th. Last CAC was May the 13th. April the 29th, I attended the NSFM Kings Joint meeting where we reviewed the priorities of NSFM. Some of the priorities that are lobbied to the province included gas tax fund and asset management. I attended the REN meeting on May the 15th. We looked at approving the 3-year regional economic development strategy. That's tabled to the next meeting. We reviewed the agreement, the intermunicipal service agreement, namely with respect to membership funding formula, withdrawal and termination, code of ethics, and provincial changes in member status. We then had an update from Valley Ren Operations and Activities Update. May the 15th was Investment Advisory Council meeting, where we reviewed the reports and recommendations for the month ended April 2019, and the market value of the portfolio as of April 30th was just north of 13 million. We reviewed our overall stock allocation by industry and by asset. May the 8th to the 10th, the NSFM Spring Conference. Attended the Town Caucus meeting and separate report to follow, and I realized just tonight I did not attach my separate report to follow, so I will do that next month. May the 15th was the official opening of the Kentville Farm Market. I think it was 2 degrees that day. I watched Mayor Snow hand out cake. And May the 17th was the Kentville Police Commission meeting. Attended to commend the hard works of Constable Angie McQuaid, who was a recipient of the John Dunlop Award and presented by the president of the Criminal Justice Award Association. Well deserved, and Angie has worked many hours with youth in particular. She's a community officer for sure. And various budget meetings to review both the capital and ops sides of the town's budget. There were 3 of those. I attended a women's self-care conference where Mayor Snow appeared as one of the keynote speakers around self-care and work-life balance, and Director Bedingfield was the MC. I had to send regrets for the regional sewer meeting, so I'll defer to CAO Phillips on that. Not sure there was anything to bring up, and there was no diversity of Kings meeting to attend. And April 27th, I did attend the Women Trendsetter event as well in the city, which was well attended, and thanks to Director Bedingfield for her involvement in that. That's my reports. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bolland.
Thank you, Worship. Last council meeting attended was April 29th, last CAC May 13th. May 1st, Valley Waste Management meeting. There'll be more on that a little later. May 15th, Valley Waste again. In my absence, Councillor Gerard attended, so he can mention that shortly. May 8th to 10th, the NSFM Spring Workshop. Some of these sessions I attended were, for example, the Cliffs of Fundy Initiatives, that joint municipal workshop project for Bay of Fundy Cliffs. Session on navigating social media, and one that was quite interesting, climate change, resources, and best practices. That was a good session. I attended just last weekend the official opening of the Kentville Heritage Center. It was at the former Via rail station. Big crowd. It was overflowing. It truly was. Again, kudos to those involved, including their councillor Pultzfer. Historic automobiles outside, so it was well done, nicely launched. So the Valley Waste meeting we had on May 1st was held in Berwick. We just basically had an in-depth review and discussion of the operating budget and capital budget that was later discussed a week later. As an example, the town's contribution to Valley Waste is currently 9.5%, which in real dollars is $652,901 annually, and that fluctuates. In comparison, a municipal unit with a much smaller population, the town of Annapolis Royal's contribution is 1%, which equals just over $65,000 a year. Again, both of our contributions are related to the budget, which we'll see, I guess, probably at CAC coming up. Again, both budgets were reviewed by the board at the May 15th meeting that Councillor Gerard attended in my attendance. May 2nd, 6th, and 7th, we had budget meetings. And my report failed to mention that I also attended Constable Angie McQuaid's being honored with the John Dunlap Award, as well as April 29th, the regional NSFM meeting at County Kings. So I was also at that.
Excellent.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
very much. Councillor Maxwell.
Yes. Okay, on May 2nd, I attended the Annapolis Valley Trails meeting, and I'll do a little report on that in a bit. I attended all 3 budget sessions that we had, and our budget's coming out tonight, so that's good. May 17th, I attended the Police Commission meeting. We've already had a report on Angie's award, so I won't go into that, but needless to say, well-deserved. KCA PTA, I also attended that, and we'll do a report coming up here. On May the 4th, I attended the Pet Expo at the rink. And Sophie, who is my dog, and I attended the Pet Expo at the rink. And this was the first year for this event. And by the turnout, I can tell this is going to be a big success, and will be another event for our arena. Sophie also gave her approval as well to that event, so that went very well. The Annapolis Valley Trails meeting, kiosks will be placed on the Harvest Moon Trail beginning the 3rd week of May. Kentville Recreation will be contacted prior to their placement, as well as the garbage cans and benches that will also go in on the trail at some point this summer. The website for the Harvest Moon Trail will be ready for the board to look at during our next meeting. The Harvest Moon Trail will have its own Facebook page as well. And the AGM is June 20th at 1:30 p.m. in Middleton, if anybody is interested in attending that. Nova Scotia Trails is resurrecting their Trail Patrol program as well, and more information will be forthcoming at a later date. So that's what's going on with the trails. KCA PTA on May 21st, the Meat Box fundraiser was a great success. On June 19th, there will be a bike rodeo for grades 3 to 5 held in conjunction with our Kentville Police Department. The Spring Fling, of which you are all invited to attend, will be held June 6th from 3:30 to 7 p.m. And there are many events going on during the Spring Fling. They'll have a 4-H petting zoo and a barbecue and an opportunity for family photos or friend photos and many more events. So it should be a good time. New projects coming up through the summer, I do believe they're planning on working on these. The garden project, they're painting some games and Rainbow Sidewalk and painted benches, all projects for the summer, so that the place will look really great for students coming back to school in the fall. Town of Kentville, April 27th, I attended the Women's Active Trendsetter Awards in Halifax. This is a fantastic event, I should say, honoring women involved in sport and recreation, with the emphasis on promoting these areas with girls and women. Many Trendsetter Awards were given out, with one of the highlights being our own the Valley Wild Girls Hockey Team organization receiving a Trendsetter Award. On April 29th, I attended the NSFM Valley meeting, which most people have spoken about here. It's a chance for our municipal leaders to touch base with the Federation of Municipalities to discuss current issues and concerns. May 18th, I attended both the Oak Grove Historical Walk and the grand opening of the Kentville Heritage Center. Both events were extremely well attended. The cemetery walk was very informative, and it is a beautiful spot there, I should say spot. Thanks to Laura Churchill Duke for a wonderful walk. Even though it was rainy and kind of chilly, everybody enjoyed their time there. The Heritage Center is well set up and indeed gives residents a walk through Kentville's past. Congratulations to the Kentville Historical Society for succeeding in making this center a reality. And that's my report.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Maxwell, just as a follow-up, the Spring Fling at KCA.
Yes.
Can you touch base with them and have them send us something for our Facebook page?
Certainly, I will do that.
Thank you,
Yep.
thank you. And the other thing I just wanted to mention, you sent around a video last week with regards to the Harvest Moon Trail.
Yes.
And I know that our Visitor Information Center picked it up, and it's gone crazy. So it might be one of those things that if you haven't seen it, check out Councillor Maxwell's Councillor of Town of Kentville website and have a look at that video. It's even if you're not a cyclist, it's worth a trip trip down the Harvest Moon Trail just
Well,
to see
people
it.
are even hiking that trail
Yeah.
and camping and staying at various motels and so on through the summer, so,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's,
I definitely will touch
Yeah,
base.
it's and that video, if you can circulate it again,
I will do that.
it would be well worth it because it's so well made in its production value, and I don't think it's more than 7 minutes, is it?
No, it's
Yeah,
short,
so
but it
it's-
tells all it needs to.
Yeah, it's poignant. Okay, thank you. Councillor Pulsipher, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Last council meeting attended was April 29th, and last CAC meeting, May the 13th. April 29th, I attended, as well as most of our other councillors here, the NSFM regional meeting, Valley area. It was at the municipal building, hosted by Mayor Matart. Discussion on priorities and resolutions process, NSFM updates on gas tax fund and asset management. April the 30th, I attended the Water Commission meeting, and we had updates on wells and pumps, activity in the business park, and meter cost increases. May 2nd, 6th, and 7th were budget meetings, which I attended. May 8th, 9th, and 10th, I also was at the NSFM Spring Conference in Truro. This is a brief summary. This year's conference was held at the Holiday Inn, and the highlight of the conference was getting to meet Rick Hansen and hear him speak on his life and the different forms of disabilities and accessibilities to overcome that. I haven't got a longer version of that done yet, but I will. May 17th, I also attended to see Constable Angie McQuaid be presented with the John Dunlop Award. It was at the beginning of the Police Commission meeting. A well-deserved award to Constable McQuaid, who has been with the Kentville Police for 19 years, and this award is given through the Nova Scotia Criminal Justice Association. I had no library meetings and no King's Point to Point in this report, but be in the next one. May 4th, I attended the unveiling of the Abraham Gesner statue at Chipman Corner, which is near to the home where Gesner spent some of his youth. The bronze statue was done by Ruth Abernathy, the same person that did the Dr. Apple down in our Eves Hollow. Also attended a reception and dinner at the Old Orchard Inn in recognition of the artist and this wonderful tribute to Abraham Gesner, who was the founder of Kerosene. Thanks to the Municipality of Kings and Councillor Raven for initiating this historical event. On May 18th, I attended the opening of the Kentville Heritage Centre. Approximately 80 people, maybe more, came out to help the Kentville Historical Society celebrate their new Heritage Centre in Kentville's downtown. And I omitted saying that I attended the May 18th cemetery walk in the Oak Grove Cemetery as well that morning with storyteller Laura Churchill Duke. We visited approximately 8 to 9 graves on a cold and misty morning, windy. So we heard stories about some of the famous and ordinary residents of Kentville. It was a great success, and there were requests for another one, so that may happen in the fall. Thanks to Jane's Walk, the Kentville Historical Society, and Kentville Community Fund for sponsoring this event, and a special thanks to Laura Churchill Duke for her stories that she gave. It was very interesting. That's my report.
Thank you. Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. Last council was April 29th, last CAC April 13th. April the 30th, I attended the Kentville Water Commission. The 2nd, 6th, and 7th were budget sessions. May the 8th, I attended the NSAPG, where we spoke about webinar training, human trafficking, public safety and security, and edibles. Edibles are now going to be legal October the 17th. There is a 2-month window, so whether they start the 2-month window before October the 17th and make them legal and available, or 2 months past the 17th. May the 15th, Valley Waste. As Councillor Boland said, we did talk about budgets, but not everyone had passed that budget, or their town had passed the budget. So we discussed the budgets, but we were still waiting, sort of in limbo for that. And I didn't realize this, but at the western tipping station, folks down there, because of what's going on with Annapolis County, are asked for ID. Staff have been given permission to ask them for ID because they are no longer quote-unquote members. So there is a cost for members to tip or dump waste, and there's a cost for non-members. So at the meeting on the 15th, we passed a policy to give direction to staff to, number one, whether they had it or not before, give them permission to ask for IDs. And one of the problems they fell into was people would refuse to give them ID. So staff's been directed, if no one gives them their ID, they pay the non-member rate, regardless. The 17th, Kentville Police Commission, we talked bylaw enforcement, KPS history. Rupert Davies, and if anyone has attended one of the ghost walks in Kentville, they'll know that Rupert Davies was the police chief, I think 30-some years, until 1933 or something like that. Anyways, and I learned this at the graveyard walk, but there's one of the spots on Oak Grove Cemetery where the hill's bumpy with no gravestones, and it's called Popper's Hill, where people who didn't have any means were buried. Rupert, they think they know where he is, and this September, I believe, Rupert's going to get a gravestone or a headstone. We also talked about crosswalk safety. Oh, and I will add, we have a webinar coming up for, and it's on how police budgets can and should support community safety, which we're doing it on July the 19th. Everyone's invited if they can. The webinar is not specifically that day, but when we purchase it, we get the archived version. May 21st, police collective bargaining, just a preliminary meeting, and May the 8th, I attended the NSFM conference. And that is my report. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, I guess I'm up next. So pretty much all the same things until you get down to the VREN LOC meeting, and I'll talk more about that as we move on. We also had a Valley Wren Audit Committee meeting on the morning of the 17th of May, which meant that I was actually late for Constable McQuaid's presentation. Completely missed the presentation, but I got here for the photos and for the Kentville Police Commission meeting. On the 21st of May, we had union negotiations. On the 22nd of May, we had QP union negotiations, and because of that, I missed the King's Transit meeting. And then on the 23rd of May, QP union negotiations, our second meeting, and I missed the Valley Wren board meeting. So it felt like we had been sitting for days by the time that it was all done and over with. As well, I attended the NSFM spring workshop, and my report is attached. On the 29th of April, I had the pleasure of being at the National Day of Mourning. Again, the ceremony draws more and more people annually, and it's in observance of workers who have been injured or lost their lives at work. The young woman who spoke was the daughter of the man who lost his life at a garage in I believe it was Dartmouth, and he was he was working on a vehicle on a flatbed, and he was doing some welding or something, anyway, or cutting with a torch. What he didn't know and what he wasn't aware of is that the gas tank on the vehicle was actually leaking at the time, and basically set his body on fire, and the only thing that wasn't burned was where his boots were. And he died the next day. But last week, if you read the Chronicle Herald, there was actually an article about this, and it's going back to court. You just never know who you're going to meet or whose story is going to touch your life. But it's just one of those things. On the 29th of April, of course, we had our NSFM Valley Region meeting. The really great thing about this meeting is it gives us an opportunity to get together, but as well, the folks come down from Halifax, both from the NSFM office and our president. And the president came and he brought some news for us because he had recently been to Ottawa. But we have a new CEO with the NSFM, and she's got a whole new take on things, and so it's very much a fresh approach. The 15th of May, as has already been discussed, was Farmers Market Day, and I'm going to tell you, it was a hateful day. There's just no other way to describe it. But you know what? Every one of our market folks were out there, and they were smiling with their toques and their mittens on. But she was a tough one. On the 18th of May, the Kentville Historical Society opened its doors wide to bring a little bit of history into our lives. On the 19th of May, the Kentville Wildcats Senior Men's Baseball home opener, I got to throw the first pitch out, and I just want to put it out there that for the third year in a row, I hit her a strike. So anyway, and I also got a shout out from Bill Young, because he was standing there, and as you will all recall, he was the pitcher of the 1985 Wildcats, and he made some comment about me not bouncing the ball, because I guess Bruce Willis, just a few days before, had actually bounced a ball somewhere that he was throwing it out. So I have to say that I beat Bruce Willis. So anyway, Water Commission, you've heard what there was there. We did have a write-off for $915.05 of uncollectible debts. But basically what that means is that once we write it off, it goes to a collection agency, so there's still an opportunity to collect that money. The LOC meeting, if you think about the Valley Wren as being our economic development for our region, the LOC is actually the group of owners. So we are the elected officials who sit on that as the ownership, and it's our job to ensure that the Valley Wren is doing for us what we expect it to do. The big things here is that Annapolis Royal decided not to become a member of the Valley Wren because of the high cost. And Wolfville is no longer a member of the Valley Wren as of this fiscal year. Of course, we are on budget, and the financial statements, as I said, were ready for the audit committee, and we did review them, and everything is good there. The biggest project coming out is going to be our regional marketing plan, and that's going to look at the entire area. Miscellaneous events, all kinds of meetings. I got to be a guest speaker at a self-care conference. I was one of the judges for the Women of Excellence, and I also got to go over to Glooscap Curling Club and celebrate their season of champions, and it really was a season of champions. Believe it or not, we have two of our curlers from this club are Canadian champions in stick curling. And when you hear Rachel talk about recreation, she often says the 8 to 80 rule. And when you look at curling, it truly is the 8 to 80 rule. It really fits that, and I have to say that this curling club is a going concern. They had almost 60 kids participating in their junior program, and kids can start at age 7. So it's quite a robust program. And then their stick curlers, they've got people well into their 90s still curling. So it's really something. You have my trip report from the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities. I would say that, that one of the big highlights, of course, was the MLAs that we had at this event. So we had an MLA from each party, which was very different from the way that we usually do it. And they actually spoke on the issues that are facing all of us as municipalities. And I have to say that they were all very well spoken and really had a good understanding of everything that we face on a daily basis. And then, of course, as has already been said, the keynote speaker was Rick Hansen. And he spoke about the need for accessibility and the criteria to establish by his foundation to meet the needs of a barrier-free future. And one of the things that his website talks about is that with a lot of old infrastructure that we will probably never achieve 100%, but his foundation sees the 85% as a gold standard. So we're in good hands, and there's lots of things happening with that. The thing with Rick Hansen is that he's been at this talking game for a long time, but every time he speaks, it's very fresh and it's very new, and he always brings, I'm going to say, a new message to what he says. And one of the things that he talked about, he saluted the faceless Canadian heroes who volunteer their time with no expectation, and that was one of those statements that really hits home. The town of Truro and Colchester County did an amazing job of hosting us, and it was truly a really great conference. And I've attached my expenses and as well the agenda to my report, so that's available for you. And that is my report. So if I could have a motion to accept the members of council reports as presented, please. Thank you. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that the member of council reports be adopted as presented. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We have no correspondence tonight, and we're moving on to new business. Certainly. All right, so we'll take a 5-minute break. So fill up your water or whatever works for you while Director Kroll gets herself organized.
thing that sounds up.
It's not now. So we're on to our new business, and the first order of new business is Town of Kentville operating budget. And Director Kroll, thank you so much for coming out this evening.
Why, thank you for the invitation. It's my pleasure to bring you the highlights of the 2019-2020 proposed operating budget. And this is on behalf, I'm bringing it on behalf of the whole budget team, which is all of you.
Yay.
As an introduction, the operating budget reflects the visions and the goals developed by council and its residents, and it's one of the most important tasks undertaken by council each year. Every day, one can look out the window and you can see municipal tax dollars at work. You can see your snow being cleared. You can see kids playing in the parks. You can see your garbage being picked up. The ratified operating budget becomes the guiding document for the town's various departments to provide service delivery to the town's residential and corporate citizens, but it can be a real challenge to balance the essential programs, increased expenditures, legislative requirements, and the wants and needs of our citizens with the desire to maintain stability in the property tax rates. The proposed 1920 Town of Kentville operating budget is before council for consideration. This financial plan is a balanced budget totaling $13,265,000, an increase of $392,900 or 3.1% over last year's operating budget. You can see at the bottom of page 1 the process, but under provincial legislation, sufficient revenues must be raised to meet all budgeted expenditures. Each director crafted his or her respective departmental budget based on the requirement to provide service delivery in the most efficient and economical manner. The draft budgets appeared before council on May the 6th and May the 7th and culminated in this recommendation that you see tonight. The major drivers for the 1920 operating budget include: for 1920, the province set the cap at 2.9% CPI as compared to last year's figure of 0.9%. Budget to budget, provincially mandated payments to the province remained stable for 2019-20 with only slight increases. Contributions to several of our joint board partners increased in 1920 as the town must pay our share of service delivery carried out by our joint board partners. The proposed operating budget before council today is a no-frills budget. Service delivery will continue at our customarily high standards. However, there are no new town-based programs added to this budget, and there are no major enhancements to the town-based programs. Council's ultimate goal was to keep taxation rates as stable as possible, understanding that many economic drivers are beyond the town's control. This proposed budget before council is built on solid principles and offers both residential and corporate citizens exemplary services and good value for their tax dollars. Regarding service delivery, which is the operating expenditure side, operating expenditures are increased $392,900 or 3.1%. Expenditures are segregated into 3 categories: mandatory, fixed, and controllable. Mandatory expenditures relate to taxes collected on behalf of the province of Nova Scotia. These expenditures are unavoidable, and it's our responsibility to collect taxation for provincially mandated programs such as correction services, housing services, regional library services, education services, and we also include the expense to property valuation services limited in our mandatory expenditures. This is the fee for the quasi-provincial entity charged with provincial property assessment. These mandatory expenditures are a sensitive issue amongst municipal units, as they are indicative of provincial downloading of people's services onto the municipal form. As we know, municipal governments are specialists in the provision of property services. This infringement on our municipal rates means that our total taxation rates are higher than for purely municipal service delivery. Overall, mandatory expenditures increased a small amount this year for the first time ever, $4,200 or 0.2%. The mandatory expenditures now cost us $1.87 million. They also comprise 14.1% of the total expenditure budget. The mandatory rate decreases approximately 1 cent per 100 in this budget. And you can see in the middle of page 3, the mandatory expenditures and the slight increases that you see in 2 of the services. Fixed expenditures include non-negotiable costs such as the transfer to joint boards, community partners, and other commitments, debt repayment, and valuation allowances and reserves. Remuneration and benefits are somewhat uncontrollable costs as well, as collective agreements, internal policy statements, along with provincial and federal legislation drive these cost centers. This year, fixed expenditures comprise 63.2% of the total 1920 expenditures. And you can see at the bottom of page 3 the increases and decreases in the fixed expenditures. The total for the year is an increase of $207,200. Looking at controllable expenditures, these comprise approximately 22.7% of the total expenditures of this budget and encompass the programs and related service delivery levels which Council debated throughout the budget process. In summary, the changes of controllable expenditures is an increase of $181,500. You can see at the bottom of page 4 an exploded pie chart of the expenditures for the town of Kentville, and you can see provincial mandatory there at the bottom highlighted in red. We always highlight that in red. 14.1% of our expenditures relate to provincial mandatory. Regarding the revenue funding required to balance this budget, we're looking at $13,265,000, and it's made up of a municipal tax levy of around $6.0 million, other municipal revenue of $4.6 million, which means we have $10.6 million available for municipal purposes. We are collecting about $1.9 million in mandatory tax levy, area rate for fire purposes, $161,900, area rate for hydrant purposes for water commission, $414,700, and for economic development, we have $111,800. Revenue from other than property taxation increased $68,600, or 1.5% from last year's budget. And you can see in the middle or at the bottom of page 5 the increases and decreases related to the segments that make up that $68,600. Regarding the 2019 assessment, we have the provincial cap, as I mentioned before, set at 2.9% as compared to last year's figure of 0.9%. This year, capped assessments affect 50% of our assessments. Last year was 57%. New revenue dollars are derived from a combination of assessment growth, new construction, and property sales transaction. For 2019-20, residential assessment grew by 2.5%. Commercial assessments increased by 4.2%, and payments in lieu of tax or grants in lieu of tax from upper levels of government decreased by 3.1%. These adjustments to assessment provide $243,000 in new tax dollars at last year's rates. The separately rated Kentville Business Park and seasonal assessments provide new tax dollars of $57,300. And there are changes in the area rates this year, and that is a decrease in revenue of around $29,200. All combined, the total increase in taxable assessment and changes in other rates provides new tax dollars of $271,100. You can see at the bottom of page 6 the breakdown related to the municipal tax, mandatory tax, and other rates. At the top of page 7, you see the exploded pie chart of the revenue taxes. 72.1% of our budget revenue is from taxation. At the bottom of page 7, you see the budget summary. Total increase in revenue, and this includes revenue from other than taxation and new revenue, is $311,600. However, expenditures increase $392,900, which leaves us with a budget shortfall of $81,300. So the results are that new revenue and other revenue increases for 2019-20 do not offset the lift in expenditures in this budget. Therefore, the general tax rate is increased from $1.70 per 100 to $1.72 4/5 per 100. This is a lift of 2 1/3 cents per 100. Residential rate increases 1.3% as follows. Residential base rate is 142 3/4 per 100. Fire area rate, I should say area rate, not our rate. Area rate is 3 1/5 cents per 100. Hydrant area rate is 7 2/3 cents per 100. Economic development levy is 1/5 cent per 100. The total residential rate is 153 3/4 cents per 100. Total residential rate increases 1 9/10 cent per 100. For a $100,000 residential resource assessment, the annual tax bill is $1,537. This is an increase of $19.30. For a $100,000 residential property that attracts the 2.9% assessment lift, you will see the annual tax bill at $1,581.57, which is an increase of $63.87. As a reference point, the residential taxes will rise 1.3%, which equates to the Consumer Price Index for Nova Scotia for the month of March 2019, as posted by Statistics Canada. The commercial rate remains flat. I won't read those rates now. We'll read the rates in the record in a few moments. The total commercial tax rate, there is no change. For $100,000 commercial assessment, the annual tax bill is $3,524.20, which is identical to last year's rate. How the tax dollar is spent for 2019. Of the $13.2 million budgeted, the town of Kentville will collect $6 million in municipal property taxes, $1.9 million for the province, $0.4 million for Kentville Water Commission hydrant area rate, $0.2 million for the fire area rate, and $0.1 million for economic development initiatives, leaving other sources of revenue totaling $4.6 million. Approximately $8.1 million, or about 61% of total revenue collected, will go towards delivering the services for the town programs, such as legislative and administrative services, policing services, public works services, planning services, and recreational services. The remaining levy, which is approximately $5.1 million, is collected by the town on behalf of other agencies, including the Province of Nova Scotia and Property Valuation Services Corporation, both mandatory, the Kentville Volunteer Fire Department Incorporated, which is the fire area rate, the Kentville Water Utility, which is the hydrant area rate, and the Economic Development Levy, which is transferred to Kentville Business Community, along with fixed costs, including transfers to joint boards and commissions and debt servicing. These programs and services are either fixed or not under the direct administration and financial control of the town. Where the tax dollar is spent in 1920, you can see at the very bottom of page 9, a graph, that's a chart that shows you exactly how many cents of your dollar is spent for each of those services. Page 10 shows a breakdown of residential tax, a $100,000 assessment, and a commercial tax assessment of $100,000, and exactly how many dollars are spent on each of those programs. Top of page 11, you can see the Kentville tax rates, the history of the tax rates from 2011-12 to 2019-20. And this includes the area rates. A picture, in my view, says 1,000 words, and this to me shows stability. It's very flat. It's a very flat tax rate for both residential and commercial, which is a good thing. Comparing Kentville's tax rates to those of other towns in Nova Scotia, Kentville continues to find itself at the low end of the scale. For the year 2018-19, of the 26 towns in the province, Kentville had the 7th lowest residential rate, while the commercial rate was the 5th lowest. And you can see at the bottom of page 11 a bar chart that shows towns that we normally compare ourselves to in close proximity. The statistics from 2018-19, you can see Kentville is in the very first column, first two columns, and you can see comparisons across the board that Kentville looks very strong in comparison to those municipal units. In summary, this proposed operating budget before council today will continue program delivery at the same exemplary level to which our residential and corporate citizens are accustomed. It will maintain sizable transfers to reserve funds for future and unexpected expenditures. It will maintain manageable debt servicing expenditures and maintain the total commercial rate and increase the residential rate, the tax rate, by 1 9/10 cents per 100. The recommendation is twofold. The draft Town of Kentville operating budget was presented to council at public meetings on May 6th and May 7th. It was moved that council recommend the draft 1920 Town of Kentville operating budget in the amount of $13,265,000 to the May 27th, 2019 council meeting for ratification. And the motion was given by Deputy Mayor Kate Savage. It was seconded by Councillor Kathy Maxwell, and all members voted in favor, and the motion was carried. And you see this report here today. And further, I recommend that the following proposed tax rates for the year April 1, 2019 to March 31st, 2020 are ratified by the Town of Kentville as follows, and they are read into the record. The figures are rounded for ease of reading. We'll do the residential rate first. Municipal base rate is $1.42 3/4. Fire area rate is I can't read that.
1/5?
1/5. I need stronger reading glasses, I think, or bigger font. The hydrant area rate is 7 2/3 cents. The economic development levy is 1/5 of a cent, and total residential rate therefore is $1.53 3/4 cents. The commercial rate, municipal base rate is $3.31 1/3 cents. The fire area rate is 3 1/5 cents. Hydrant area rate is 7 2/3 cents, and the economic development levy is 10 1/3 cents. The total commercial tax levy is $3.52 2/5 cents. Every year, the wish list exceeds the available funding, challenging the budget team to be as efficient and effective in the use of the tax dollar. The budget presented this evening carves out a plan for continued delivery of high-quality services to our residential and corporate citizens with a careful eye to our pledge of fiscal responsibility and stability. And so in closing, I'd like to thank the CEO and senior management team, who aren't here, but I'll thank them tomorrow, for their valuable contribution to this process. And I'd also like to thank Council for its advice and direction to the budget team throughout this process, and that's respectfully submitted by myself, May 27th, 2019.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. So we have a motion to approve the draft 2019-2020 operating budget in the amount of $13,265,000, and further that council approve the proposed tax rate for 1 April 2019 to 31 March 2020 for residential of $1.53 1/4 cents and a commercial rate of $3.52 2/3 cents. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Pulsifer, got you first. You seconded? Yes. So it's been moved and seconded that council approve the draft 2019-2020 operating budget in the amount of $13,265,000, and further that council approve the proposed tax rate for 1st of April 2019 to 31 March 2020 of residential $1.53 1/4 cents and commercial of $3.52 2/3 cents. Discussion, Councillor Andrew.
I was just wondering, we had some discussion, well, I guess I had some concerns about, even though it's a relatively small portion of our overall budget, with our process by which we issue grants
Right?
to organizations. And is there an opportunity for us to revisit that? And is there an opportunity to approve the budget, but come back to that at a later date?
We have discussed the grant process and the application of the policy
Okay.
at meeting.
Yeah.
So it will go beyond the approval of the budget, and it's still open for discussion.
Okay.
And so we can modify the process as required, and say what we do and do what we say. And again, leave ourselves some leeway in how we apply our grant processing.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve the draft 2019-2020 operating budget in the amount of $13,265,000, and further that council approve the proposed tax rate for 1 April 2019 to 31 March 2020 of residential $1.53 1/4 cent and commercial of $3.52 2/3 cents. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, Director Kroll, you're moving on to capital investment plan.
I am indeed. I'm bringing before council the proposed 2019 to 2024 capital investment plan, and these are the highlights of the discussions that took place at the budget meetings. In order for the town's various departments to carry out their specific mandates, the town must acquire and maintain a variety of infrastructure. Capital infrastructure must be safe, reliable, and meet the needs of the department to provide efficient and effective service delivery to the town's residential and corporate citizens. It's commonplace for the capital wish list to exceed the level of available funding, and therefore the town's various department managers must accept compromises in order to maintain the current level of services we enjoy. To assist in prioritizing infrastructure projects, the Capital Investment Plan, or as we call it, a CIP, is created. This plan is a 5-year financial planning tool that presents a meaningful perspective of the town's short-range and long-range infrastructure needs and related financing. All levels of government struggle with the renewal of capital infrastructure. The available funding sources are scarce, unpredictable, and in some cases unsustainable. External funding sources are particularly scarce, and often our infrastructure needs exceed these external resources. To complicate matters, often upper level, say that 3 times fast, upper level funding programs, I didn't know I put tongue twisters in this, often upper level, I'm going to skip that sentence, no I'm not. Often upper level funding programs may not align with the priorities of the town, which may put a wrinkle in the town's plans. With external sources of financing unpredictable, the town must then rely on its own reserve funds and or long-term borrowing to offset the cost of capital acquisition. This proposed 5-year capital investment plan is the result of a solid internal process, which included council, senior managers, and other interested parties. The goals are shown on the top of page 2. A primary goal of Kentville's capital investment plan process is to maintain debt service limits between 10 to 12% of own source revenue as determined by council. And the secondary goal is to keep new borrowings for 1920 close to the $1 million mark. When building this proposed capital investment plan, the budget team looked at aging infrastructure nearing the end of its life cycle and growth factors because new development requires infrastructure investment. We also have a priority setting criteria that we look at: health and safety impacts, fiscal impacts, asset management impacts, development impacts, and service enhancement impacts. At the end, the targets were met and the proposed capital investment plan was presented to council on May the 2nd, 2019, and after much discussion on the proposed current year plan and some adjustment to that, it was approved to move forward to council. This proposed capital investment plan before, it says Council Advisory Committee, it should say council, sorry about that. Council demonstrates our commitment to take care of our aging infrastructure needs along with investing in growth needs. For the current year, 1920, senior managers seek approval in the amount of $2.4 million encompassing 35 capital segments. We're looking at capacity building projects for 1920. These are funded by gas tax funds. The following projects increase the sustainability and economic viability of our town and reflect the gas tax guidelines of environmentally sustainable municipal infrastructure projects, including local roads, active transportation, sport infrastructure, and recreational infrastructure. The total of gas tax projects this year is $478,200, and this is what makes up that whole number. $73,200 for renewing sidewalk on East Main Street by Burger Hill, $80,000 for renewing sidewalk on Canaan Avenue, $55,000 for economic development initiatives in the Kentville Business Park, $40,000 for Kentville Bridge Canoe Launch, $200,000 for Park Street West project, street and sidewalk, and $30,000 for renewal of pavement School Street. Transportation services projects are next. The town is committed to renewing its aging transportation assets and infrastructure by ensuring that renewals and upgrades are carried out prior to the end of the asset's useful life. This can include investment in paving and resurfacing of streets, fleet upgrades, crosswalk controllers, storm sewer renewals, sidewalk renewals, and the like. This year, the following projects are requested, and they total $958,200. $134,000 for replacement of a skid steer loader, a sweeper truck overhaul, and a fleet card lock system. $25,000 for the continuation of ornamental light replacement program. $15,000 for upgrades at the Public Works Depot. $175,000 for flood mitigation dike extension on River Street. $300,000 for renewal of streets Campbell Road and Chester Avenue, $20,000 for renewal of parking lots, $97,500 for approaches to the new Kentville Bridge, and $191,700 for storm sewer renewals. Under Recreation Services and Cultural Projects, we're committed to the quality of life services, which are found in Recreation Services. This year's capital investment plan includes various parks and playground upgrades, new equipment, work at the Kentville Pool, additions to the mountain bike trail system, along with completion of the skate park. The total recreation projects this year, $723,100, and these are the projects. $8,000 for soccer program, $5,000 for green initiatives on Station Lane. This is signage on Station Lane. $10,000 for tennis, clubhouse and washroom upgrades. $35,000 for Memorial Park fencing and playground. $11,000 for Memorial Park mountain bike beginners trail. $200,000 for Memorial Park skate park bowl. $16,000 for Oakdean Park gazebo. $10,000 for other parks, Bonavista Vista Playground. $99,600 for pool upgrades to pool building and bowl coating, $220,000 for equipment, event trailer, digital sign, a Zamboni, or ice resurfacer, I guess I should have said, and bike racks. $108,500 for studies, needs assessment, and active transportation, and a ravine trail plan. Economic development projects. Invest in development of infrastructure that increases the attractiveness of the town of Kentville, as well as providing opportunity for development. Projects this year total $82,000 and comprised of $15,000 for planning computer software, $19,000 for downtown betterments, seasonal lighting, benches, and a public garden, $33,000 for rebranding signage, gateway signage, and business park signage, $15,000 for upgrades to the Calkin building. Administrative services projects, the corporate offices require investment to expand information technology, and also upgrades to the building continue this year. The total for 1920 projects is $88,500 and is made up of $63,500 for administration, new servers and software, and $25,000 for the town hall exterior staircase. Protective services projects, Protective Services Policing requires investment to improve response time and provide safety to its officers and the public. The total of the projects for 1920 is $108,500, $48,000 for the purchase of one marked vehicle, $7,800 for equipment, mobile speed signs, $42,700 for upgrades to the police building, the roof, and $10,000 for information technology, a server replacement. The funding sources for this budget are as follows. From the province of Nova Scotia, $87,500. Proceeds on sale, $29,500. From operations or the town's operating fund, $38,500. From the gas tax reserve, $478,200. From other reserves belonging to the town of Kentville, $723,300. And from borrowing for 10 years, $1,081,500, for a total of $2.4 million. The bottom of page 5, you can see the exploded pie charts of the capital program and the various funding sources. And the next page, page 6, shows the exploded pie charts of the proposed projects by nature and the proposed projects by type. And we get into the future years. On page 7, future capital budgets are the tools used to establish long-term spending priorities, which help us build a vibrant town in a meaningful and cost-effective way. These capital plans assist in mapping out our future operating expenditures, debt repayment expenditures, and potential reserve fund requirements, helping us manage the financial position of the town over the next 4 years. As required by legislation, future capital investment expenditures for the years 2021 to 23-24 are projected, and the breakdown you can see in the middle of page 7. I won't go into all the details there, but I will cite the numbers for 2021, $1.7 million, for 21-22, $2.2 million, for 22-23, $2.3 million, and for 23-24, $1.7 million. Funding sources are below, and as per usual, they're a balanced budget. Page 8 shows you that same information in chart form. One indicator used as the guideline for borrowing limits is the debt service ratio. The ratio identifies our capacity for absorbing new debt servicing in the operating fund. The Nova Scotia Department of Municipal Affairs established the benchmark of 15% of own source revenue, which it uses as a measuring tool to ensure that municipalities do not exceed their maximum capacity for borrowing. Town Council has established that its debt service ratio for the 5-year capital investment plan will be in the 10 to 12% range. The debt service ratios of this proposed capital budget range between 10.2% in 1920 to 9.6% in 23-24. You can see the chart in the middle of page 9 shows the comparisons between last year and this year. For 1920, the per capita debt ranges between 1,042 in 1920 to 1,048 in 23-24. Page 10 shows a comparison of the capacity for new debt servicing costs. The proposed capital investment plan reveals continued stability in the capacity for new debt servicing between 10 and 12% of our own source revenue, as shown in the graph below. And the graphs on page 10 are at 12% debt service ratio, which is the highest amount. So you can see that if we had a 10%, it would be a little bit different graph, but this is at 12%. The conclusion is that the proposed 1920 capital investment plan will continue to reflect the town's vision statement and brand messaging of the town. It will continue to improve Kentville's investment in infrastructure, ensure its long-term viability, sustainability, and flexibility. And it will continue our long-range plan of increasing our pay-as-you-go financing. It will also maintain reasonable debt servicing levels and will enhance the quality of life for our residential and corporate citizens. The recommendation is twofold: that the draft capital investment plan was presented to council at a public meeting on May the 2nd, 2019. It was moved that council recommend the draft 1920 capital budget in the amount of $2.4 million to council for ratification at the May 27th, 2019 council meeting. The motion was given by Councillor Kathy Maxwell and seconded by Deputy Mayor Kate Savage. All members voted in favor and the motion was carried. And further, I recommend that council approve the future years of 2021 to 23-24 in principle, along with the related funding sources as noted above, as follows. And you can see the years there, and I've already read those amounts into the record. And so that is respectfully submitted by myself on May the 27th.
Excellent, thank you very much. So the town of Kentville has a recommendation to approve the draft 2019-2020 capital investment plan in the amount of $2,438,500, and further that council approve the future years in principle for 2020, 2021 to 2023, 2024 as provided in this document. If I could have that motion? Thank you. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that council approve the draft 2019-2020 capital investment plan in the amount of $2,438,500, and further that council approve the future years 2020, 2021 to 2023-24 in principle as shown on the report. Is there any discussion, Councillor Gerard?
Thank you, Worship. Two questions, I think probably one's for Mark and one's for Deb. Question one, how did the sign relocation go from 16,000 to 26,000? And I was looking through the budget the last couple of days, and now it's at 40,000. So that's one question. And the other question is approving the future years. Why do we have to do that?
Maybe in reverse order?
Yep.
Because we're required legislatively to provide a 5-year capital investment plan in order to keep gas tax monies flowing.
They are targets. We often revisit them, as we would have last year, or this year, based on last year. The sign is an unknown, and so I think that's what I would say about that. I feel fairly confident in my knowledge of the file. So whether it's the reestablishment of new concrete base and even construction of new poles because of the topography and the slope and the elevation, to the provision of electrical supply and the unknown of the fixability of the sign, to be honest. There's some unknowns associated with that. So I assure you.
Sorry, that's changed since March?
You have to speak to the director directly about that. I'm confident we won't take any more that's needed, or if things are more extreme than is anticipated or allowed for, that we revisit the issue with you.
Okay,
But it really is a handsome allowance based on unknowns,
thank you.
fortunately.
Councillor Maxwell.
Yes, I'm just wondering, looking at the gas tax infrastructure and looking at Burke subdivision, I notice it's been put into the 2021 budget. This has been delayed several times over the last several years, and I'm wondering why it's going into 2021. That's my first question. My second question is Park Street West project. I don't remember hearing about that before, and I'm wondering why that one takes priority over Burke subdivision that has been waiting for several years for that to be fixed.
The Park Street West is better known as a sidewalk from Toyota dealership to the first entrance of Bonavista. So that's the title. I'm sure you're familiar with the background, but we may have titled it more appropriately or for accounting purposes. And the Burke subdivision, as we debated during the capital process, was just a sizable project, could be in the $1 million range, and just trying to manage current day needs along with new improvements. Now, we have not accounted for the additional gas tax funding that we anticipate. We've heard this before, and smaller amounts have arrived. So if we get the size that we anticipate, which could be in the $400,000 to $450,000 range, we would anticipate revisiting Burke subdivision with you as a possible project for this year, as a late addition, if that funding comes through. And that would represent half of that. And we've internally discussed the possibility of doing that, and consulting engineers and our folks in-house, feel that's a possible thing, if that funding comes through.
Okay, great, thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Deb, just a quick question around the recreation service and cultural projects. So the 1085 for the needs assessment and AT and Ravine Trail Plan,
Right.
and I'm just trying to read down, how much of that is offset from grants? Is that the 87.5 that goes towards that?
The capital reserve recreation, 74,900 is more or less, most of that goes towards these grants. This is a
Okay.
carry forward from last year.
Right.
The reports were not received in time,
Right.
so we had to carry them forward along with the funding that went with
Exactly.
it.
Okay, yep, perfect, thanks.
Councillor Bolland.
Thank you, Worship. The 200,000 for the skate park, were there other revenue sources to offset that, or was that a pure, I can't recall, so.
We, during the budget deliberations, so in this fiscal year, no. We looked at we presented to you the totality of that project, which is close to $750,000, of which over the start to the finish represents about 50 cent dollars. So if we consider the County of Kings 150, the Feds $100,500, $100,500. The contribution from the skate park
The province gave
association.
50,000.
Province gave 50,000.
Yeah, there were various other donations, too
Right.
small.
So the totality of the project is about 50 cent dollars. But within this fiscal year, that last $200,000 bump, there is not a direct offsetting revenue streams for that.
Is there, last final question, are we responsible for all that 200K, or should the County of Kings be part of that equation, or is that?
Yeah, so the county was presented with the 750 project when they committed to their 150. And as I recall at the time, the draft proposal was that the municipal contribution would be 150 times 2. That's why we were looking at the time for the county to make that contribution of 150, which they've revisited the 50,000 each year, and we've been awarded $50,000 increments twice, and we fully anticipate the third installment, I guess, or payment of it. So again, if you look at it in isolation, it does look like we're on our own, but if you look at the totality of the project, which has been rolled out over the 2 or 3 years, it's 50 cent dollars, and I can't speak on your behalf, but typically that's a pretty good deal on that type of infrastructure to have 50-cent dollars.
Okay,
So.
yeah, thank you.
Is there any further? All right, it's been moved and seconded that council approve. The question is on adoption of the motion to approve the draft 2019-2020 capital investment plan in the amount of $2,438,500, and further that council approve the future years in principal of 2020, 2021 to 2023, 2024 as provided. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you very much.
Your worship, before the
Sir?
director sits down, if I
Okay.
could, thank her for another year. There's certainly there's a technical aspect, to the budget process, operating capital, and you see it on a monthly basis, and you see it through the audit process, but, this is also an employee who cares, and thinks about the totality of the community and the residents and the financial stability of the town, and through her leadership, it's always fun. Despite, the stress and challenges of putting two budgets together. So on behalf of the department heads and senior management team, I want to thank Deb for her leadership in delivery of these two budgets yet again. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Is there any further business? Excellent. So that's a motion from you, Deputy Mayor? Yes. Excellent. And that was a second from you, Councillor Bolland? Yes, ma'am. Excellent. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much.